Did NASA fake the moon landing? I'm going to be talking about this on a deeper level in a couple of weeks. But today, I'm asking this question. Did NASA fake the entire moon landing? As in, did they stage it? Did they film it? Did they hire actors? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. We're going to watch a trailer to a movie that's called Fly Me to the Moon, starring Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum. So that's coming out this summer in July. So we're going to check out this trailer, and I want to get your thoughts. So feel free to subscribe to this channel. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think NASA would do something like that? Do you think NASA would fake the entire moon landing, and why? So let me know in the comments. So let's just go over to this trailer. Let me just bring it up here.
Hey, Joe. Evening, Cole. Miss, you're on fire.
Very original. No, I do not want to stop, drop, and roll with you.
No, your book is on fire.
Oh my God.
Alcohol and flames. They like each other. Cold dating.
Kelly Jones.
Public support for the moon mission is rock bottom.
Every day, something is breaking. And we're dead. Again. Or blowing up.
The space program is a bloated mess.
NASA needs a marketing specialist, and you are the very best.
Excuse me? What are you doing here?
I tracked you down because I felt we had a connection.
What?
I'm joking. I work here now to sell the moon.
NASA's not something that you sell with a jingle and a slogan.
When I'm done, those men are going to be bigger than the Beatles.
Who is that?
For me, that's the very person.
He's got my name.
You told me that your guys don't do interviews, so I had to hire you guys.
I'm here for the casting. Who's he?
You're a juicy part.
60 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea. How's that?
What?
The whole world will be watching. We can't afford to lose to the Russians. We need to shoot a backup version of the moon landing.
You mean to fake it? No one can ever know what we're doing.
I cannot accept that.
They will shoot you.
What is my budget?
Oh, boy.
I know a lot more about the moon than I know about you. Give me go, no go for launch. If you fake this mission, every single thing that we have sacrificed will have been for nothing.
You know you couldn't have made it to this day without me.
4, 3, 2, 1.
And
My Armstrong is a whiny little bitch. We have to recast.
I think we should have gotten Kubrick.
All right. We're back. Let me come back to the screen. All right. So, what do you think? It's interesting. I just want to review. Let me just go to here for a second. Let's just have a look at this footage here. Look at this here. I'm going to mute the mic. Let's just back up to right here. Look at this. Where is it? Right there. So they're using wires and cables in this stage. You see the dust there. You see the lights, the shadows, everything here, because there are numerous conspiracy videos on the moon landing. Numerous. So I find it interesting that this production company decided to make a movie. I'm just trying to see who produced it. Give me 1 second here. Who produced this? Who was... Let me see. Dun, dun, dun. Man, it's not easy to find. What? Apple. So it looks like Apple made it. Apple Studios. Which is kind of interesting when you think about it. All right, so we have this person here in this contraption that is clearly on the stage itself, because you could see lights to the left and all this kind of stuff. So they're recreating this movie. And in here we could see probably actors clapping, all this kind of stuff. I think part of this is breaking down the fourth wall, if you will, in some ways, because you see people in black. Lance on the right side, I'm not sure who that is, probably a character for the movie. But you'll see in the distant, you see on stage, they have the capsule, the lunar lander itself. And on the right, you'll see a gentleman, it's probably Armstrong, making his speech. This is a big step for mankind, because you could see on the bottom, there is a close-up of that shot, which makes you wonder, how did they get the camera angle? They'll tell you that they just had a remote camera on the outside the whole time. If they had to stage it and set it up, that means Lance Armstrong, what we saw was not actually him touching down on the moon, because somebody would have had to set the camera up. So that means if Lance had to do it, he would have had to step off the capsule, go set up the camera, and then go back and then pretend that he's stepping down. This is one big step for mankind, a giant leap for mankind, all this kind of stuff. I just find it quite fascinating that they're doing this. I would have stayed away from this. Because this is going to cause all kinds of commotion. And it doesn't take very long to get people revved up on this kind of stuff. And then they're going to start looking for everything. So I'm expecting, starting today, more conspiracy videos coming out. And Google is going to have a tough time, because in order for Hollywood, let's just say, for example, Apple, to release these trailers, and this is the first trailers, so there's going to be more trailers over the next 3 or 4 months being released. Google has to reduce their threshold, or increase their threshold, I think it's increase, for tolerance for conspiracy videos. So I'm expecting more videos to come out over the next 3, 4, 5 months because of this movie, because otherwise it will be a flop. It'll be a flop on YouTube, because anytime they show a trailer, if YouTube has its algorithm, it'll squash any of this stuff. So that tells me they have to lighten it up. There's probably been some kind of conversation in the background saying, look, we want to promote this movie, but if YouTube is going to thrash us and squash us because we're talking about conspiracies, this movie will never fly, let alone to the moon. So this, to me, is an opportunity to talk about conspiracy videos. especially when it comes to NASA and the fake moon landing. So I'm going to be talking about this. And again, I'm going to be hosting a round table in 2 weeks, 2 Sundays from now. And we're going to be talking about this. We're going to talk about Hollywood's fixation on mocking the lunar landing. And I'm going to talk about what the reason is behind that, why they're doing this now. So we're going to talk about that. So that's in 2 weeks, but it's just interesting that they have this trailer out now, and it's going to be a pain in the neck for YouTube because they're used to squashing people's videos. They just are. So again, there's that shot that we were just watching with the men in black on a seat, and then on the left you see another sign saying finished set on air. There's the TV that audiences all over the world were watching the lunar landing on a TV because what they did is they took film, they shot it. I don't even know how they would even begin to do this. The people on the lunar module would have had to have cameras that would send a beam back to the United States of America. And then what they would do from there is rebroadcast the footage from the capsule to that studio and then send it to TV, television sets all over the world. Like, if you just think about it for a second, if you just actually sat down and just took your shoes and socks off and went, this doesn't make sense. Because when you think about it, I come from a broadcast school. We took film. It's not easy to load film canisters and to develop film, all this kind of stuff after underneath a tarp, because we had to practice developing film or changing the canisters in the camera under a tarp, and you had to learn how to do that in the dark and all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't easy. And developing film was sensitive. You have to have certain light, exposure, all this kind of stuff. And you're telling me these astronauts are trained to hold a film camera in front of them, like this microphone, with 1/8 gravity or whatever, and be able to film everything so that we can see it. Like, you're telling me they're capable of doing that from their chest. And remember, they have a monitor. They can't adjust the focus. They can't adjust the aperture. They can't do anything. They don't know when the film is running out. If it's video, like, this is the 60s we're talking about. It doesn't add up. So now you have them somehow using a mechanism in their capsule to be able to show people on Earth what's happening live. Do you understand that? Do you understand how impossible that is to do that? You can't do it here today. You can't do that because you have to have line of sight. You can't just beam things wherever you want. You have to have line of sight. You have to have towers that pick up the broadcast, and then you relay them to another hub, which would usually go all the way to the coast. And then you put them, basically all that video feed goes under in submarine cables under the sea to Europe and vice versa. That's how it works. If it didn't work that way, then you could just beam from one country to the other. You don't need submarine cables, but you need them on Earth. So if 99% of our internet cables are coming from submarine cables, talking about going from one country to the other, How on God's green earth are you relaying video footage 240,000 kilometers away in real time from the moon? How are you able to do that when we don't have the technology right now today in 2024 to do that? It's just a simple question. How are you able to do this in the 60s when we can't do it today? That's not how the world runs. We don't operate that way. We don't beam video footage from one country to the other. We can't do that. So instead, everything has to go to submarine cables under the sea. That's how we get all our stuff across. Then, once it gets to shore, now you use all the towers to broadcast. And even then, you still got to use cables, Cat5 cables, fiber optic cables, all this kind of stuff everywhere. It's not in the clouds. Most people, I think if you were to talk to 100 people, they would say, where's our data stored? They would say it's stored in space. It's stored in a satellite. It's stored in the cloud. But it's not stored in a cloud. It's stored in buildings. And then it gets relayed by submarine cables to other countries. So if you have a live show somewhere in another country, there's a little bit of a delay. We know that. We accept that. Whenever there's a live reporter and the person at the desk asks them the question, they're like, yeah, thanks for asking me that question. Yeah, this is fantastic weather. There's always a delay. That didn't happen with President Nixon when he was talking to the astronauts on the moon. And I think was specifically Arnold, what's his name? Armstrong. There was three: Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong. I forget the third guy. We always forget about the third guy. The point is, we didn't have the technology back then to land on the moon, let alone to be able to broadcast from the moon all the way to Earth. Think about it. Submarines, when they go underwater, no cell phone communication whatsoever. Zero. Why? Because they can't communicate to people on shore unless they come above the surface. It's impossible. They don't do it. So why would you think you can do that with a lunar module that's landing or that's landed on the moon? Hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Why would you think that? Why would you think that that's just what happens? Well, it's because we're conditioned by watching movies in Hollywood. And now they're starting to showcase the idea that this was fake. And they're now almost like they're making fun of us in some ways by believing it, by exposing the fourth wall and putting it in the form of a movie where we're like, well, that's just Hollywood's interpretation. Is it though? Is it? Because if you want to get people to, if you want to discredit or get people that are trying to say that the landing on the moon is fake, you start making movies about it to show how much of a conspiracy this was, that it's a fake conspiracy. I'm losing my train of thought here. But again, the idea is if you show it as a bit of a comedy that, hey, they faked this, but they actually hired an agency and then they explain it away, you're going to walk away either questioning NASA even more, or you're going to say, oh, yeah, okay, this is where we get all the conspiracy stuff from because they had an agency that was filming at the same time as the real landing was happening, and these were crooked people. You can't trust film companies. Those are crooked, but you can trust the news. Film companies, agencies are not to be trusted. I think that's what they're going to picture. That's what they're going to portray in this, so that you have to decide as an audience, who do I trust? Do I trust the news outlets, the news media outlets, or do I trust agencies and all this stuff that are up to no good? They're diabolical. See this? They filmed a fake lunar landing. You can't trust those people, but trust NASA, trust the media outlets, CBC, CBS, Fox News, all these outlets you can trust. So the reason why I want to talk about this is there's an election coming up in November. I don't think you're going to have an election in the United States in November for the first time. I think something's going to happen before the election that will cause Joe Biden to cause the United States to go under martial law. And if that happens, you will not be able to vote. You won't be able to. So I want you to be able to come back to this channel and say, oh, here's some predictions that Black Swan made ahead of time before it happens. And if it doesn't happen, if I'm wrong, that's fine. You can jump on the comments. You can say you were wrong. You were wrong. But sometimes you have to take a stab at it and take a guess. There's too many people that guess after the event using their hindsight bias and then say, oh, I said this from the beginning. I'm telling you from the beginning. I'm telling you that there is a chance, a huge chance, that the United States could go into martial law. Now, I don't know what that's going to mean. Like, I don't know what's going to cause that to happen. But if you think that Donald Trump is going to get an easy time to come in as the president of the United States for this year, you think it's just going to be a walk in the park? There are so many people that do not want him to be the president of the United States. And for me, logically, the only way to do that is to declare martial law for your protection. It's not safe. How do we know this? Well, this happened in Ukraine. Zelensky did it. He's supposed to be for the people, but every 90 days he renews martial law. And it just so happened that at the end of March, they were supposed to have elections, but he said this wasn't a good time to have elections. It's not safe for the people to vote for who they want, meaning Zelensky will stay in for an undefined amount of time. And I guarantee that they probably won't have elections anymore, period. Zero. You think Zelensky is going to give up his power as the president of Ukraine? It's not going to happen. And people think that I'm against Trump. I don't know if you can see, I have all his books. I've read all his books, but they get mad at me saying I'm anti-Trump. If Trump gets into power, it's not going to be the same guy. Why? Because he now knows the rules of the game. The rules of the game cost him the last election because they cheated, they manipulated votes, all kinds of stuff, and he wasn't in. You can argue with me and say, no, it was fair. It was a fair deal. I remember going to bed the night before thinking he's got this thing wrapped up. Next morning, I guess they had more votes during the night come in, and he's out just like that. So if Trump gets in, I honestly believe that it's going to be a different Trump, meaning he's not going to want to come out easily. So he's got another, let's just say he goes in January. He's got 4 years. And then I don't think he can run again after that. I don't think you can do it that way. I think the most a president can run is 8 years. I'm pretty sure. I think the rules of the game will change so that he can overturn it. And again, maybe Trump will put in martial law. If he gets in, somebody's using martial law. They're going to use that wild card to stop the votes because Trump knows the rules now. He knows who's who. He knows who betrayed who. If he doesn't get in, it's going to be because of martial law. If he gets in, you're not voting him out after. That's what I feel. He's already made too many comments saying that if I get in, I will end the war with Russia versus Ukraine tomorrow. I will solve it. That is either a good thing or that is a dangerous thing to say when you have your finger on the nuclear bombs. Because again, if you have the most powerful people in the world saying things like that, eventually one day you have to take them serious. So there's my 2 cents. There's my 2 cents for today. So what do you think? Do you think, and we're going to go to one more clip, and this is with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and we're going to hear his perspective on whether or not the lunar landing was faked. So let's go to this little, just a couple minutes. Let's go to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let's hear what he has to say.
Have you really thought about what it would take to fake a moon landing? Because the rocket did launch. We all saw the rocket launch. Okay, so there's hardware there. They're like office buildings of blueprints for the design of the Saturn V rocket. The hundreds of engineering hours that went behind this and the records of those designs. If you wanted to fake the moon landing, you would have to fake all of these documents. And it just seems to me it's way easier to just go to the moon. Has anyone considered that? Just go to the moon. That's easier than fake.
So his thing is it's easier to go to the moon than it is to fake documents. It's not very logical, actually, when you think about it. It's actually, I would suggest that it's actually easier to fake documents. And I'm not as smart as Neil Tyson. I'm not an actor I'm not a scientist like him. I'm not as smart as him. But it's easier to fake documents. It's easy to compartmentalize areas so that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. I'm not saying a rocket never took off. I'm saying we never went to the moon. That's what I'm saying. So his explanation is laugh at it and go, guys, just use logic. Isn't it easier to go to the moon than it is to fake a moon landing? Isn't it easier to go to Mars than it is to fake going to Mars, like Devon Island, like filming all your stuff, pretending you're going to Mars? Isn't it easier just to go to Mars than to fake it? That's what he starts off with his argument, and laughs at it so that you kind of get into it and go, oh yeah, you know what, Neil? Yeah, you know what? You make sense. Actually, yeah, that's a pretty smart thing to say, Neil. Wow. Why didn't I think about that? It's easier to go to the moon than to fake documents. Let's continue.
Faking all of this. So, no, but yeah, we went to the moon.
Okay, there's your scientific explanation coming from one of the greatest minds on the planet, Neil Tyson. I think, yeah, I don't want to say he's the dumbest guy on the planet. I don't want to say that. I'm not going to say that. I don't think I should say that, because if I were to say that he's the dumbest guy on the planet, then you guys would get mad. So I don't want to say he's an idiot. I don't want to say that. I want to say that he's dumb. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So instead, I'll let you decide. Do you think NASA faked the moon landing? Let me know in the comments. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a couple of weeks. But I thought I'd give you a little bit of a teaser and talk about this right now. So let me know in the comments. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. And we'll see you in another video. Bye for now.